what's going on, everybody? So today I want to do a video on cold and frost protection for the Arizona desert. So unfortunately this topic can be one that's up for debate on how to do it. There's two main things that I want everyone to think about when doing winter protection. Are you doing it just to keep your plant alive, so survive, or do you want your plant or tree to thrive? So there are two differences. So there are some plants that you could give them zero protection and they're going to survive. But with that same plant, you can give it a little bit more protection and it's going to thrive here in the wintertime. Winter protection is a lot like watering. So every yard, every area, every little microclimate is different on how much protection that each of your plants are going to need. And you have to spend some time in your yard. You have to get to know what the winter conditions are like so that you can plan accordingly. So I think the number one mistake when it comes to winter protection is improper preparation when planting your plants. So this is the second home that I've done trees in, and with my first one I just randomly put plants where I thought that they would look cool. My new house, I have my plants in certain zones that cluster the plants that have certain requirements when it comes to cold or sun protection together. Everything needs to be planned out, everything needs to be smart when designing your layout for your plant. Now, I'm not going to do a video on how to frost protect one plant. There's tons of those videos out there. I might link one or two up in the top for you guys to review if you want to go look at that on your own time. What I want to talk about is, one, I'm going to show you guys how I frost protect and cold protect my tropical area, which I'm going to do it with the philosophy of I want it to thrive, not just survive. And then two, I'm going to go through the different areas of my yard and show you guys plants that I haven't done any frost protection with and they've survived. That way you can decide for yourself. Do you want this to be a plant that thrives, or do you want to put a little bit of extra energy into something that survives? And sometimes people make the mistake and will frost and cold protect things that don't need that kind of protection. Just a quick example, a little bit more established citrus trees. I remember growing up, my dad used to put a blanket over the top. He did it all wrong. He put a blanket over the top, it wouldn't cover the bottom of it, and he put a light inside. And you know what? They did live, but it really wasn't necessary what he was doing. Citrus have been in Arizona for a long time. They're one of our staples, and they really don't need extensive frost protection. There might be some varieties that are the exception to the rule, but I'm just saying in general. So I'm going to go through some of my plants, and I'm going to show you guys my tropical area and what we're going to do to get it ready for the winter, okay? All right, so you guys have seen my tropical area in several of my videos, my mango and papaya videos, along with a few others. So as you can see, the entrance to this is covered with a giant sugar cane. We have a pretty good sized castor bean, and then we have a black sapote tree. So what I'm gonna need to do before I start applying any of my frost protection is I'm going to need to trim back some of my plants. Before I do, check out my video of using your environment to protect your trees from frost. And one of the main things I used last year was my castor plants. Now everybody talks about how great they are for summer protection, but they also are kind of your first line of defense in frost. So if you have a frost sensitive tree and you've got castors all around it, the frost will hit the castors before it hits your frost sensitive tree, maybe give you another day. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be pulling some of the sugar cane back and trimming around my tree, giving some pruning. That way I can make some room. If you guys see, I have a structure that is built around my frost sensitive trees that I'll get into in a minute, but really want to trim it back so that I actually have some room in order to put in my protective plastic sheeting down. Okay, We'll see you guys in just a sec. Alright, so my banana, if you look, goes way above where my frost protection is. So I'm going to do to this what I did to this little banana right next to it. The only difference is, so I'm going to go a little bit higher. Alright, stand back a little bit, bud. Alright. Follow me through here. I already trimmed my papaya. I cut it down. Another video is coming to talk about that. But just so you guys can see, that was sticking above the line and we chopped it down. So then come back here. And we've got this banana right here. I'm going to, instead of cutting it all the way down, just going to get rid of a few of the leaves that are sticking over into that side. I know my neighbors are awesome, and they've been really cool with us putting the structure up. One request they had was that we don't cut their palm leaves so that they have maximum time to grow this winter. So we're going to leave them be, and we're going to put our cloth around them, or our plastic around them. So that's where we're at for the trimming phase. So everything's trimmed, and we're getting to the point now where we're ready to put the plastic up. So we'll be back in a bit. All right, so this top row is proving to be the toughest, but we've got our plastic wrap. Jackson's pulling it, trying really hard not to get the neighbor's palm trees in our way, which is tough. He's taken a lot of precautions to make that easier. So that's where we're at so far. Finishing up the top layer right here. Working on the east side, you can already feel the temperature go up quite a bit just on this, having two panels up. Okay, so we've just assembled our little makeshift greenhouse for the winter. It's the end of November. We'll probably keep this up till the end of February just to help retain some of the heat. We used a 6mm painter's plastic that we put down, and we stapled it along so that there aren't any leaks. You do need to have some airflow with this, so we have the front of it open, and I will be shutting this at the nighttime. Another good feature that we have is I have a space heater that is in here. You guys can see this will barely be on, but it is here in case we have emergency temperature drop. So what I have here is a temperature controller. It measures the temperature. If I drop below 50 degrees, that space heater will turn on. If I go above 70 degrees, that space heater turns off. So I want to try to keep it 50 degrees at the coolest in here, which if we have low nights, then that's possible. I also have a digital thermometer that I have mounted in here that I can read from the outside. and I can come out here during the day and just measure the temperature of everything to see how things are going. So this is a lot of work. This is extreme. If you guys can see, I have 2x4s and 4x4 beams that I've put up that I've mounted into my wall. So it's a pretty heavy duty structure. If you're going to use some really thin wood stakes or PVC, I'm not saying that it can't work, because it can, but you are probably going to have to make adjustments throughout the winter. This is something that I wanted to do so I could just set it and forget it. This winter may not even need this. It may not even need this at all. It's been a pretty mild winter the last couple winters, and this winter is supposed to be pretty warm. So I may not even need this. This is more of one of those rather be safe than sorry. Okay, so what I want to talk about now is what else can we do, because this isn't realistic for a lot of people. Realistically, I mean, this took months of planning. I've actually had this structure up for a couple of years now, and this is the first time I'm putting the painter's plastic around it. I've just basically had that heater on 24/7 for a couple of years, and everything in here has thrived and done well, but I don't want it just survive. I want things to grow in here. I want this to be a time of year where I get the most growth, which you can pull out a lot of extra growth in the winter. That's awesome. So I'm going to show you guys some more trees and what I recommend for winter protection, and some other tips to help keep them alive without breaking the bank. All right, see you in a bit. All right, so like this area, for example, this is my deciduous trees. What deciduous trees are is they're trees that lose their leaves in the wintertime naturally. So I've got mulberries, peaches, plums, plurries, apriums, jujubes, pomegranates, apples, you name it, I got it over here. This area needs absolutely zero winter protection. They actually need to get cold in order for them to be able to fruit the following year. Okay? So come around this corner, and this is what I call my subtropical area. So it kind of merges in with my deciduous area. I have some bananas in the back. So bananas are one of those things I see a lot of questions about. Should we winter protect them? How do I protect them? My best advice with bananas is just let it happen. Unless you live somewhere where you're dropping below 25 degrees on a regular basis, there's a decent chance that your banana is going to live. I've gotten regular nights in the 25 to 28 degree range, and I have yet to have a banana not come back that following year. So just let the banana take the hit. Number one rule with it, though, is leave the leaves on until the fall. The dead leaves will actually take the frost before the trunk will. The next one, guavas. I did a video on guavas recently. I actually showed what they look like in the winter. These guys, the leaves can turn red and they look like they die back, but they're not a deciduous tree, but they will survive the winter without any problem here. I've never protected them, and they actually come back more vigorous and growing the next year. And the next group that we have is my citrus group. So I've got my big oranges. Let's avoid the sun there. My big tangelo. I've got a lemon tree back there. And then I've got, kind of down below, I have my little avocado cluster. Now avocados, if you don't get an avocado that can take the cold, then I wouldn't get an avocado that can't take the cold. It would be a waste of your time, because then you got to battle keeping it protected in the winter and keeping it protected in the summer, and that's just a lot of work. So there's a lot of varieties of avocado that actually have growth during the wintertime, and you're not going to need to worry about it. Best time to plant avocados is in the fall, so they do use the fall time to establish it. Those of you who have seen my avocado videos, this is where I transplanted them, and they actually have some new growth coming in. So even though they went into transplant shock from transplanting them in July, which is not recommended, they did well. So then loquats. I've got loquats here, and I've got a couple loquats over here. They need zero winter protection. They will thrive. They are in that category of their own where they don't like the direct sun when they're younger. They'll grow into it. but they do not need any winter protection. Then I've got a couple groups of white sapotes, so my Vernon white sapote, my Youngins white sapote, and my, what was the other one? Young Hands, and my Redlands white sapote. They do not need winter protection. My Jumon, now it takes a little bit of a hit in the wintertime. I actually don't want to prune it right now just because I want it to just have as much foliage as it can. But I'm not going to prune it, but they do take a little bit of a beating in the winter. So one other tip for winter protection is always having a nice layer of wood chips down. So especially in the subtropical area where you're not going to do protection. So as these wood chips hold water, they also can, as they're breaking down, break down and generate some heat. So if you have grass clippings, you can put it near a tree that you want to give a little bit of relief from the elements, and it'll help. The next thing is you've probably seen people put sheets over it. If you're gonna put a sheet over your tree, make sure that the sheet is actually touching the ground and it's not wrapped around the trunk. Otherwise, that's not really gonna do anything for the tree. It's just gonna give it a quick blanket, so whatever heat that blanket would have generated for the few minutes that you're putting it on. Then I'm gonna come over here, and there's a few trees that I just kind of roll the dice on. You guys can see the passion fruit vine here. Every year the passion fruit vine that I have takes a pretty good hit. It's a nice big beautiful vine. Usually just the leaves die and the branches come back, but I just take a hit when it comes to those. Palm trees, like this little pinto palm, I do absolutely nothing with. There I consider subtropical. There are some palm trees like coconut palms that require some more protection. Just know what you have. The last thing I have is my Barbados cherry. Now, I've never protected this, but it's the one tree that I kind of get nervous about. Some of my friends down at Queen Creek Tropicals, just a few miles, I think they're 6 miles down the road, they had theirs. This is actually cutting from that one, and it died down to the ground with one of their cold nights. I've never even seen as much as a leaf burn on mine. I think because I have it near a wall, so the wall, you know, just looking at it now, temperature-wise, 74, 75 degrees. It's currently 65 degrees outside, so it does retain some of the heat. That might transfer over. I'm not sure. It's just one of the only trees I have that I kind of get nervous about, but I'm just going to roll with it and see what happens and hope for the best. So winter protection doesn't need to be a scary thing. It's actually pretty easy once you know your trees and you kind of have an idea of what the temperature is at night around your house. You're going to lose some trees as you're experimenting with this, unfortunately, but at the same time, you're also going to save yourself a lot of time planning ahead, making sure that you're planting things in certain groups so that you can protect them all at once. There's a lot of good advice out there. I'm not going to say I have all the answers for all the questions, but I will say I have learned from a lot of experience. I think planting them in the correct groups is the best thing you can do. Making sure that you've got mulch and compost down that'll actually break down and give them some extra heat. The really cold, really cold nights, you can actually turn your sprinklers on, give it a little soak. That will absorb heat and release it because it takes it longer to absorb that heat to turn into frost. So there's a lot of good things you can do, but just don't be afraid of it. Just be prepared. It's better to start preparing for your frost protection before the first frost. That's one of the worst times you can do it because you're rushed. You don't have time to do it right. So it's good to get things ready. And then when you have that first frost, you just close your door to your little greenhouse or put your frost cloth or plastic wrap around your trees that are sensitive and then get it done. So keep on growing this winter. This is going to be hopefully a warm winter and we don't have a lot to worry about, but we'll enjoy seeing the progress that comes from what we've done in our little greenhouse, seeing if we can trick our trees into thinking it's a different season, maybe get fruit at different times or some fun stuff like that. So we'll be back again with you, and subscribe. We'll see you next time.